What if I told you that the oh so mighty royal family, those self-appointed guardians of dusty traditions and glittering hypocrisy, has just stomped across a line so blatantly absurd, so laughably irreversible, that it might etch their legacy, not as noble stewards of history, but as petty tyrants in a crumbling soap opera? Picture this farce. You wake up one morning realizing that no matter how much grovelling you do, no matter how many fake apologies you spit out, no matter how loudly the rabble screams for mercy your own kin, those pompous blue bloods have decided to slam the palace gate shut, toss the key into the moat, and pretend you never existed. That's precisely the ridiculous spectacle that's just unfolded. Meghan and Harry officially banished. Not for a fleeting tantrum. Not until the drama queens cool their jets. No forever, like some medieval exile decree from a bad historical drama. Before we plunge deeper into this royal circus, do me a favour, smash that like button as if you're venting your rage on a royal portrait. Subscribe to the channel like you're joining a rebellion against boredom, and flip on those 2 notifications so you don't miss the next act in this endless farce. Chew on that for a second, folks. We've all witnessed pathetic family squabbles, siblings who ghost each other, parents who dramatically disown their offspring over trivial nonsense. But how often do you see a 1,000-year-old relic of an institution, one of the planet's most overrated celebrity clans, publicly declare that 2 of its flashiest rejects will never darken the doorsteps of coronations? Jubilees, weddings, or those stuffy state shindigs, not in sly gossip columns or leaked whispers from some scheming courtier, but in a meticulously scripted proclamation designed to scream "we're done with you" without smudging their act. Pristine gloves. Now, here's the truly hilarious twist in this tragicomedy. This isn't merely about slapping wrists for naughty behaviour. It's not just bruised egos or the sting of betrayal. Oh no, this is about raw, desperate survival mode for these crown-clutching clowns. The royal family peered into the mirror of their scandals, the endless interviews, the wine-fest memoirs, the Netflix sob stories, and posed the most hilariously paranoid question: if we let these 2 loose cannons linger in our gilded cage, what's left of our precious monarchy? Their answer: a doomsday prophecy, so overblown, so comically dire, that it pushed them to a verdict that reeks of cruelty on the surface, but in their deluded minds was as essential as breathing. But wait, the plot thickens into pure absurdity. The royals didn't whip up this ban in a fit of rage over afternoon tea. Oh no, this was the culmination of months of shadowy huddles, frantic midnight calls, and heated spats behind those impenetrable palace walls, where even the corgis probably rolled their eyes. Figures you'd least suspect, like the ever-stern Princess Anne, that tireless drudge who treats drama like a bad smell, suddenly emerged with ultimatums sharper than a knight's sword. And when William and Kate chimed in, their demands weren't polite suggestions. They were imperial commands, barked with the entitlement of heirs who think the world owes them eternal serenity. King Charles he dithered like a confused pensioner, lost in his own garden, but ultimately rubber-stamped it all, because for him this wasn't family squabbling, it was defending a tarnished crown from imaginary assassins. Let's hit pause on this raw ridicule and ponder the sheer pathos. Can you fathom the gut punch for Harry, the eternal spare part, Diana's brooding boy being informed he'll never again awkwardly shuffle next to his smug brother at some pompous parade, or for Meghan, that starry-eyed actress who once fantasised about being the monarchy's diversity poster child, now realising even her offspring will be treated like distant cousins at a forgotten family reunion? This mess gets downright tangled, because while the royals patted themselves on the back for safeguarding the future, they were actually igniting a powder keg of resentment. Every snub, every cold shoulder, every theatrical exclusion only amplifies the tale. Meghan and Harry have been peddling for ages that the monarchy is a frigid, cutthroat machine, allergic to forgiveness and dripping with outdated snobbery. And if that narrative catches fire, In America, the Commonwealth, or God forbid, the global meme factory, the fallout could dwarf anything these crown wearers ever dreamed up in their worst nightmares, perhaps even toppling their fragile throne like a house of cards in a stiff breeze. Why now, you ask? Why, after years of eye-rolling scandals, after that Oprah bombshell that exposed their dirty laundry, after Spare's petty revelations, after the Netflix pity party, why plant their flag in the sand today of all days? Ah, the timing is as exquisitely ironic as a clown at a funeral. The monarchy is teetering under pressure, like a wobbly antique vase, King Charles's reign, a fragile joke plagued by health woes, malicious rumours, and public trust evaporating faster than morning dew. William and Kate. They're spotlighted like lab rats, burdened with dragging this relic into a new era where nobody cares about fairy tales anymore. Every blunder is magnified, every slip-up a potential catastrophe. And Meghan and Harry's mere shadow at royal gigs. It's graduated from awkward family reunion vibes to outright hazardous, like inviting pyromaniacs to a fireworks factory. Hazardous how exactly? Roll your eyes with me every time Meghan saunters into a room, the cameras swarm like vultures on a carcass. Every time Harry stands shoulder to shoulder with William, the tabloids dissect their body language like amateur psychologists at a bad therapy session. Headlines detonate like cheap fireworks, memes multiply like rabbits on steroids. Instead of projecting unity, the monarchy looks like a fractured mirror held together by duct tape and denial. Instead of exuding dignity, it devolves into prime-time entertainment for the masses to mock over popcorn. That's not a luxury the Crown can splurge on amid its current existential hangover. But here's the deliciously cruel irony that makes this all so mockable. By exiling Meghan and Harry, the royals have orchestrated an even grander spectacle than before, like clowns tripping over their own oversized shoes. Instead of hushed hopes for reconciliation, the globe is now abuzz with terms like banishment, exile, and petty punishment, turning the palace into a laughingstock. Rather than letting the duo fade into obscurity like yesterday's headlines, they thrust them back into the limelight as tragic martyrs in a war they didn't choose to lose, or did they, with their endless victim parade? This is where we peel back the layers, like an onion that makes you cry with laughter. Was this ban purely the royal family's brainchild, or did Meghan and Harry back them into a corner like cornered rats? Were their endless interviews, lawsuits and tell-all tomes the ultimate slap across the powdered cheeks, or the desperate pleas for attention that the palace ignored, until the drama boiled over into this farce that's a riddle only you can unravel as we dissect this royal train wreck? And don't overlook the symbolism dripping with irony. Royal events aren't mere cocktail hours, they're history's bloated ego trips. A coronation. Not just a fancy hat ceremony, it's a snapshot for eternity's scrapbook where the royals pose like mannequins in a wax museum. A jubilee, not a parade, but a desperate flex of, we're still relevant. By airbrushing Meghan and Harry out of these charades, the royals aren't just punishing them. They're attempting a historical lobotomy, obliterating them from the monarchy's selective memory, like inconvenient plot holes in a bad script. That isn't justice, it's a pathetic attempt at erasure, as if history won't remember the hypocrites who wielded the eraser. That is not just punishment. That is obliteration from the institution's memory, a move so comically vindictive it borders on parody. So, what does this mean for us, the popcorn-munching public? Why should you give a hoot about yet another royal scandal that reeks of overripe privilege? Because this isn't mere gossip fodder, it's a masterclass in power plays, image fakery, and the teetering future of a monarchy that struts around preaching tradition, unity, and family values, while stabbing its own in the back. When these blue blood buffoons banish their kin, they're broadcasting to the world what truly matters to them. Not love, not forgiveness, but a polished facade shinier than their stolen jewels. And Here's a nugget you probably haven't chewed on. Yet the royals aren't idiots. They anticipated the backlash would erupt like a volcano of virtue signalling. They knew Meghan and Harry's cheerleaders would flood social media with righteous fury, that Hollywood's glitterati would rally like caped crusaders for the oppressed duo, that headlines would howl about cruelty and heartlessness, louder than a banshee convention. Yet they plunged ahead anyway, like lemmings with crowns. Which begs the snarky question, what juicy secret intel do these palace plotters possess that we plebs don't? What hidden truth convinced them that slamming the door was safer than cracking it open, even if it meant looking like heartless relics? Cling to that enigma, because in the acts ahead, we'll unearth the clandestine chats, the sneaky proposals, the all-night brawls that birthed this debacle. We'll expose why William and Kate, those paragons of poise and pretense, finally demanded heads on platters. We'll reveal how Princess Anne's barbs packed more punch than ever, and we'll witness King Charles, ripped between paternal pity and crown-clutching duty, ultimately betray his blood for a bauble. But before we cannonball into that chaos, let's cap this opener with the query that should ricochet in your skull like a bad echo. What unfolds when a family spat morphs into a royal edict? What chaos ensues when a mere disagreement ceases being personal and solidifies into something permanent, official, etched into the monarchy's bloated annals? Because, as you're about to discover in this sideshow of absurdity, the fallout is far more melodramatic, far more perilously ridiculous than any court jester could conjure. And what came next would change everything, or at least that's what these drama addicts want you to believe. What happens when a disagreement stops being personal and becomes permanent, official, written into the history of the monarchy itself? That's where we left off, dangling like a noose in the wind. And now we must mock the moment it all splintered like cheap china. The breaking point, that glorious instant when the royal facade cracked wider than the Grand Canyon. Pose this to yourself with a smirk. What does it take for a family that's mastered the art of burying scandals deeper than their vaults, glossing over treacheries like pros at a cover-up convention, and rebranding their image with more spin than a washing machine to finally screech? Enough like petulant toddlers, what sacred line must be trampled? Because, let's be brutally honest, this isn't their first rodeo with betrayal. They've danced this tango before. Recall Edward VIII ditching the throne for Wallis Simpson, like a lovesick fool, leaving the family scrambling like headless chickens. Ponder Charles and Diana's messy divorce, a spectacle of infidelity and tears that turned palaces into tabloid battlegrounds. Don't forget Andrew's epic nosedive into disgrace, a scandal so sleazy it could grease 1,000 headlines. Through every fiasco, the Windsors clung to their golden mantra: seal the lips, mend fences in secret, and parade unity like it's a national sport. But with Meghan and Harry, that rule got shredded like confetti at a failed party. So, what precisely propelled these crown clingers to this unprecedented clownery? The truth. It wasn't a single aha moment of enlightenment. It was a barrage, a non-stop deluge of decisions, interviews, and bombshells that eroded patience faster than acid on marble, even among the stiffest upper lips in the palace. It kicked off subtly murmurs in corridors, arched eyebrows at tea time, then escalated to televised tantrums, the memoir manifesto lawsuits flung like confetti, the Netflix navel-gazing extravaganza. Each time the palace twiddled thumbs, muttering, "This too shall pass," like deluded optimists. But instead of dissipating, the tempest swelled into a hurricane of headlines, darkening skies and deafening roars. By the time Spare thudded onto shelves like a lead balloon, the royals grasped a horrifying reality. Meghan and Harry weren't merely flouncing off stage. They were sabotaging the set, torching the script, and inviting the audience to boo the whole production. Imagine you're William, the golden heir, brainwashed from cradle to crown, that duty trumps all, even family bonds, even your own fleeting joys. You've witnessed your parents' union implode under scandal's weight, endured lifelong snickers about the monarchy's shelf life. Then your brother, your childhood sidekick, the sole soul who shared Diana's ghostly shadow, flips the script and smears the family as icy automatons, heartless hypocrites, cruel caricatures. How do you retort? With open arms and forgiveness? Or do you hit the wall, where mercy morphs into madness because the throne you're doomed to inherit hangs by a thread? Here's the knotty twist for Harry and Meghan. Their saga was a triumphant tale of truth-telling, therapeutic venting, and liberated rebellion. For the royals, it was treasonous backstabbing, disloyal drivel, and deliberate demolition. Two wildly clashing lenses on the same blurry mess, each side convinced they're the unsung heroes and victims. Inevitably, that deadlock bred escalation, not peace, like two bulls in a china shop of egos. But pinpoint the trigger, insider's finger spare, as the prime culprit, Harry's wine-laden opus, spilling private spats, explosive accusations, even brotherly brawls into the public domain, a scuffle with William drug confessions, Camilla bashing Barbs. Abruptly, the monarchy wasn't a revered relic. It was a trashy reality show ripe for ridicule. The palace, blindsided and boiling like cats in a sack. Yet even that literary grenade didn't fully doom the duo. The royals had shrugged off scandalous scribbles before. No, the genuine rupture erupted when the pair signalled no brakes on their drama train. Post-Oprah came Netflix's sob symphony. Post-Netflix spares spleen vent. Post-spare rumours of more docs, more exposes, more media circuses. Each cycle, the family prayed it was the finale. Each time, disappointment slapped them silly. Finally, enlightenment dawned in their gilded gloom. This circus had no closing act. Harry and Meghan weren't exiting gracefully. They were forging an empire on the monarchy's ruins, monetizing misery like savvy influencers peddling royal wreckage. Now let's skewer the personal underbelly of this royal roast. William and Harry's once ironclad bromance pulverised into dust, a tragicomedy of brotherly betrayal. Remember their glory days. Linked arm in arm at Diana's funeral, two grieving princes embodying hope for a refreshed reign. They were meant to be the dynamic duo, a modern shield against obsolescence. Yet, reunion after reunion devolved into icy standoffs, every chat a verbal minefield. One insider likened it to a vase shattering in agonizing slow-mo. You spot the cracks, but you're powerless against the inevitable smash. So, when did William finally snap like a twig underfoot? Whispers from palace peepholes suggest it wasn't an explosive showdown with Harry, but a quiet epiphany staring at his own brood, George, Charlotte, Louis. He envisioned them ensnared in this perpetual media maelstrom, headlines hounding their uncle's antics, late-night comics lampooning the family farce controversies, staining their innocent futures. Those kids would one day shoulder the crown's curse, and William decreed no more. Not on his watch, not in this lifetime of ludicrous legacy. Here's the biting irony that stings like a swarm. Meghan and Harry fancied themselves truth warriors, but their verbal volleys convinced William and Kate they were walking liabilities, radioactive relics too toxic for the throne. Room. That revelation, the authentic breaking point, transforming reconciliation dreams into survival imperatives. Because once the heir brands you a throne threat, it's game over. No more olive branches, just sharpened axes. But don't kid yourself. William didn't solo this symphony of severance. Kate loomed large, that poised powerhouse, more cunning than her serene smile suggests. She's not merely William's arm candy. She's the future queen consort, versed in the monarchy's brittle brittleness. Insider's dish that Kate nudged William with steely logic, duty eclipses emotion. Your hat isn't just brother, it's heir apparent. When Kate laid out her blueprint, William absorbed it like gospel. United, they decreed the axe must fall. Yet even their tag team takedown couldn't sway the whole Windsor wagon. The late Queen's shadow lingers. Charles wears the crown uneasily, and he harboured a soft spot for Harry wider than the English Channel. He craved mending fences, clung to fantasies of family harmony amid the rubble. Thus the breaking point metastasised, infecting the clan. Enter Princess Anne, the unflappable workaholic whose disdain for drama rivals a stone statue's. She stunned the suits by barging in with her verdict, no mercy, no mulligans. Her stance, more gravitational pull than anticipated, like a black hole sucking in doubts. But what precise poison did she spit to hush the hall? What ultimatum turned the tide for Charles, William and Kate? That's the pivotal puzzle we must pry open for Anne's intrusion. Wasn't idle chatter. It was the incendiary, spark birthing the eternal exile decree. And what followed, a seismic shift nobody predicted, turning royal restraint into reckless rupture. What happens inside the walls of a palace when the cameras are gone? The press is shut out like unwelcome pests, and the family is forced to face its own grotesque reflection in the mirror of hypocrisy. That is where we are now delving into the secret royal discussions, a farce of whispers and wrath that makes backstage theatre look tame. The public gawked at the polished proclamation, those clipped phrases dripping with faux civility and stiff upper lip snobbery. But behind those fortified facades, pure pandemonium tension, thick as royal pudding voices, escalating like a bad opera ultimatums, flung like poisoned darts in a dimly lit dungeon. Envision the absurdity, a hallway straight out of a Gothic novel. Heavy drapes blocking prying eyes, guards posted like silent sentinels to thwart even a whiff of scandal. Inside, a cabal convenes William, Kate, Charles, Camilla, and a cadre of grizzled advisers who've navigated every royal wreck from Diana's explosive confessions to Andrew's sleazy implosion. They're not gathered for scones and small talk. This is a war room plotting like generals in a losing battle. And the target, none other than Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, those perpetual thorns in the crown's side. But let me lob this grenade at you with a sneer. How dire must the rot be for any family, let alone this overprivileged lot to huddle in conspiracy and decree eternal exile for one of their own. Not a temporary time out, but a full throttle severance, broadcast to the globe like a bad reality TV eviction. Would you inflict that on your sibling, your offspring, your in-law, you heartless hypocrite? For months, the royals had danced around this disaster like ballerinas on eggshells. Charles, the eternal ditherer, torn between dad duties and kingly posturing, clung to pipe dreams of patching things up. William, seething with sibling spite, pushed for swift amputation. Kate the chessmaster, in pearls, preached prudence but tilted toward William's vendetta. And Anne, she was the blunt instrument. No frills, no fluff. We can't lug these deadweights anymore. Slam the door, or watch them drag us into the abyss like anchors on a sinking ship. Imagine the pregnant pause after Anne's verbal hammer dropped like a courtroom stunned by a guilty verdict. For eons she toiled in obscurity, outshone by flashier siblings shunning spotlight for sweat equity. So when this unsung workhorse finally bellowed ears perked up like startled deer, this is where the royal riddles twisted into knots tighter than a corset. Charles had spent years preaching modernity, compassion, empathy for the youth. How could he reconcile that with bolting the gates on his own flesh and blood? Camilla, however, harboured no such qualms. She'd clawed from pariah to queen, through sheer grit, surviving hatred hotter than hellfire. She wasn't about to let Meghan's media blitz erode her hard-won throne. But the juiciest bit, William and Kate stormed in, prepped like lawyers, at a trial, advocating exile with charts and chills. It wasn't solely the interviews or memoirs fueling their fire. It was their precious progeny, George Charlotte Louis, caught in the crossfire. Every public outing turned the kids into feud fodder cameras, zooming like predators, dissecting smiles and stares against Harry's brooding aura. William and Kate vowed no more. Their offspring wouldn't be sacrificial lambs in this endless ego war. Here's where the muck deepens into fast advisors cautioned that a forever ban would ignite a firestorm, social media meltdowns, American celebs virtue signalling like pros, Sussex strikes more venomous than vipers. Is this worth the whirlwind? One suit queried. William's retort icy as Arctic wind. The whirlwind's already here, fools. But now it's raging from within our walls that ends today. And a lesser-known tidbit, the palace had been spying on sentiment like Big Brother polls plummeting for Harry and Meghan in Blighty, yet sympathy surging stateside where Meghan morphed into an anti-monarchy icon. That transatlantic terror haunted them, for while Britain's their backyard, America's the global echo chamber shaping royal relevance or ridicule. So, debates delved darker. What if the exiles crashed a coronation? Stood balcony side with the heirs? Would it scream solidarity or spinelessness? One courtier quipped, it'd be like hosting your hangman at high tea, pure poison. Tensions boiled over. Charles begged for breathing room, a gentler guillotine, but the clock had ticked out. William, Kate, Anne formed an unbreakable block. Camilla nodded slyly, in support cornering Charles like a rat in a crown. Sessions stretched into witching hours, aides shuffling like ghosts, every syllable scrutinised, for once decreed no rewinds. But ponder this with a scoff. Was this truly about Meghan and Harry, or the monarchy's terror of tumbling from their pedestal? Punishment or panic button? By dawn's light, the verdict crystallised exile from all spectacles or coronations. Jubilees, nuptials, burials, galas. No apologies accepted, no public pleas heeded, the portal sealed eternally. Yet, twist alert, Charles didn't mastermind this mess. Anne's hammer, William and Kate's insistence, Camilla's nudges they orchestrated, he merely signed like a puppet king. Thus, amid choking tension and historical hangovers, the royals unleashed a shockwave destined to rattle realms. But what venomous verse did Princess Anne unleash to petrify the posse? What unyielding edict muted the masses? That's our next dissection for Anne's salvo. Wasn't chit-chat, it was the pivot from pussyfooting to pummelling. Words that warped the Windsors forever. What happens when the quiet one finally speaks? That's the question that hangs in the air like a guillotine blade poised for the drop as we wade into this next chapter of royal ridiculousness. Princess Anne, that stone-faced sentinel, renowned for her no-frills ferocity and utter contempt for the spotlight siren. Call her status as the monarchy's unglamorous grindstone abruptly became the thunderous oracle tipping the scales in this farce. For decades, Anne lurked in the shadows of her more photogenic kin, overshadowed like a reliable mule by flashy thoroughbreds. She shunned the limelight, dodged drama like a pro, and focused on grunt work without a whimper. But when Meghan and Harry's saga boiled over, she erupted with a precision that sliced through excuses, hesitations, and denials sharper than a satirist's pen. And her proclamations, they landed like thunderbolts in a teacup storm. Ponder the irony Anne has outlasted scandals galore by one simple trick. Head down nose to the grindstone, outworking the lot like a machine oiled with disdain. No glamour chases, no headline hunts, no pity parties. So when this understated powerhouse finally roared, the room froze like statues in a waxworks of woe. In that pivotal powwow, she branded the drama not mere family fluff, but a dagger to the throne's throat, a existential farce threatening to topple their teetering tower. Her opener, blunt, as a bludgeon brutal as a boot. If you welcome these wreckers back, you'll demolish every brick we've mortared with sweat. The ensuing hush, deafening even Charles wobbling like a jelly on a throne, reclined and gaped like he'd seen a ghost. William and Kate swapped, knowing smirks their crusade, suddenly supercharged by a voice weightier than any pollster's prattle or advisor's drivel. For this was Anne Duty's living monument, untainted by tantrums. Anne didn't halt at histrionics. She invoked history with a scoff, dredging up Edward VIII, and Wallis Simpson's abdication debacle, how one fool's romantic folly nearly nuked the monarchy in the 1930s. She hammered home that back then survival trumped sentiment, they chose endurance over emotion. Time for round two, she sneered, making it crystal that the same ruthless roulette must spin again. But Anne ramped up the ridicule. She didn't wax poetic on the crown's peril. She nailed specifics. Every yap, every camera confessional, every scribbled screed, they're yanking threads from our tapestry. Fancy watching it unravel into rags. Her delivery, glacial cutting, no bellows needed. The gravity of her grit silenced skeptics like a gag order. Let me toss this at you with a grin. Was Anne spot on, or just a fossilised fogey too rigid for reality? From one angle, she's tradition's bulldog. From another, she's slamming gates on her nephew and his bride like a heartless hotelier. Yet, in Anne's ironclad worldview, no clash family fizzles if the crown crumbles, end of story. Here's the shocking spice. Anne's tirade transcended abstractions. She zeroed in on the heirs apparent William and Kate's pint-sized progeny. She drilled that George, Charlotte and Louis would one day inherit the global gaze. What legacy do you envision for them? She jabbed. One, forged in duty's fire, or smothered in scandal's smog and division's dust that barb pierced deep. No one dared counter protecting the pups, not Charles, not Camilla, not even William, already haunted by that spectre. And a hidden twist, Anne's salvo masked deeper bile resentment fermented over years, watching kin indulge chaos, bury blunders, excuse erosions to the throne. To her, Meghan and Harry weren't the plague. They were the pustule on a festering wound, the latest symptom of forgetting duty's iron fist overall. She vowed to lance it clean. This duality defines Anne's delicious enigma, loyal workhorse, or unyielding ice queen, dutiful defender, or ruthless reaper. Perhaps that's why her edict echoed like thunder, pragmatic, passionless, pure steel. In her calculus, only one fix: sever Meghan and Harry eternally like pruning poisoned branches. So how did Charles react to his sister's sledgehammer? Initially pushback, he bleated that Harry remained his boy reconciliation, a flickering flame, forgiveness, a balm for scars. But Anne sliced through. This isn't daddy duty brother, it's kingly command. Ouch, the burn of subordinating paternity to pomp the throne, devouring blood ties. For Charles' lifelong throne chaser, craving kin's nod, it was torment yet, Anne unflinching. And the savage satire Anne, throne shunner, spotlight dodger, shadow dweller, to her brothers, suddenly steered the ship her clout from creds, not crowns. Camilla pounced, amplifying Anne's arrows, branding the duo a mortal menace to monarchy's mask. William and Kate bobbed in agreement, momentum mounting. The chamber's balance tipped. Charles deflated tides, turning treacherous. History might dub Charles the banisher of blood, but Anne engineered the inevitability. Sans her shove, he'd have dabbled indoors ajar, with its slam-shut finality. So, query anew with sarcasm, guardian of glory or family executioner, reason's rally or cruelty's cry. Regardless, her decree demolished dialogue, exile eternal. As the summit sputtered out, all grasped the monarchy script rewritten in red ink. But cliffhanger alert, Anne's bomb birthed backlash. The royals' reveal didn't mute Meghan and Harry, it fueled their fury. Their riposte explosive enough to quake not just palaces, but planetary perceptions. What does the monarchy live on? Not taxes pilfered from the peasantry, not pilfered jewels sparkling with stolen histories, not castles crumbling under their own pretentious weight. No, it thrives on illusion, a meticulously manicured mirage of dignity, tradition, and unbreakable unity, peddled to the masses for centuries like snake oil from a gilded cart. Shatter that sham, and the whole edifice tumbles like a Jenga tower built on lies. That's why this chapter 4 is pivotal, a skewering of the image implosion Meghan and Harry inflicted or exposed, depending on your snark level. To the Palace Paranoia Squad, it wasn't a mere hiccup. It was a glacial catastrophe unfolding in excruciating, slow motion, melting their majesty into mockery. Let's rewind this reel of ridicule. For eons, the monarchy honed image manipulation to an art form finer than their china. They weathered divorces, dirtier than tabloid ink affairs, steamier than palace saunas, scandals sleazier than a politician's promise, yet always emerged smirking as inviolable icons. Post Diana's heartbreaking exit, they rebuilt with surgical spin William and Harry as the photogenic orphans torch-bearing mum's memory. Bridging eras, like human glue, the facade held, the throne endured. But enter Meghan Markle. Stage left, initially hailed as a fresh breeze in their stuffy halls, youthful, glamorous, biracial American, a token nod to diversity and modernity that had the palace preening like peacocks. Headlines gushed renewal. The wedding wooed the world like a rom-com climax. Yet beneath the confetti fissures formed, and soon the fairy tale curdled into a nightmare worthy of Grimm's darkest drafts. Query this with a chuckle. What's the monarchy's kryptonite built, as it is, on faux grandeur, scandal, betrayal, or outright lampooning? Because mockery, murders, scandals scar but fade, betrayals bend to narratives but ridicule roots, deep like weeds in royal gardens. Meghan and Harry's every gambit interviews oozing victimhood, books brimming with bile. Netflix navel gazes transform the throne from awe-inspiring artifact to global gag reel. Admiration morphed to amusement. Unity to uproarious division. The palace panicked as their polish peeled. Exhibit A. Oprah's interrogation, not just jaw-dropping, but jaw-shattering racism, rants, neglect narratives, suicidal sobs, dismissed by the firm. It caricatured the crown as Arctic automatons, compassionless clods, vicious relics. The palace's retort that infamous recollections may vary, slip as effective as a band-aid on a beheading. Damage dealt, stability swapped for soap opera stigma. Then Netflix's 6-episode ego extravaganza, crammed with private snaps, dramatic dubbing finger-pointing that cast the duo as heroes and kin as cartoon villains. Each frame, each scripted sigh, chipped the chisel-worked image like vandals on a statue. And spare the coup de grace, pages puking intimate idiocies. Brotherly brawls, Camilla critiques Harry's hallucinogenic confessions. No longer revered relic, now a family farce for worldwide cracks. Here's the hypocritical hilarity Meghan and Harry peddled their truth as empowerment elixir. But the royals viewed it as erosion, acid dissolving the throne's stature. Sans facade the monarchy's a naked emperor parading poverty. Bankrupt bank collapses. Imageless crown, same fate. Thus ignoring the inferno was impossible. Every gala gambled, would the exiles crash? Steal spotlights, shift focus from fanfare to feud. Picture plotting a coronation, Britain's holiest hullabaloo, and fretting headlines, fixating on absent glares or forced grins. Nightmare fuel for these image obsessives. And memes, social media supercharged, the satire, awkward brotherly glances, gifified, Meghan's mugs, TikTok tortured speeches, snipped into viral venom. To Zoomers, the throne wasn't solemn, it was streaming schlock. Crown as content, unacceptable blasphemy. But toss this taunt. Did Meghan and Harry birth the bedlam, or merely spotlight pre-existing potholes? Arguably the monarchy marinated in malaise, public scepticism simmering pre-Sussex. In this digital age, they just fanned flames on a funeral pyre already lit. Yet palace paranoia pinned blame on those faces Meghan's Harry's. Their event cameos, image assassins, banning them. Not vendetta, but vanguard, salvaging the saga before total tatters. Pause on William, for him the fiasco festered personally. As heir, every snap previews posterity. Harry's hover undercut it, sparking contrasts whose regala relatabler. Diana's true torch, overshadowed by sibling shade, intolerable for the ego-bruised prince. Kate echoed versed in scrutiny's sting, cruel nicknames endured before perfect polish. She guarded their gains from Meghan's maverick sparkle and outspoken oratory. Then the global gag, Commonwealth clout, crumbling Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Caribbean stirrings of severance. Sussex slurs, armed anti-monarchists defend racism-riddled relics, palace paralysis. So, when image implodes via internal incendiaries, excise them, draw daggers, declare no more mockery undermining tabloid taint, harsh heartless, but palace pragmatics deemed it dire. Irony alert Exile, amplified anarchy, headlines howled, feeds frothed, unity illusion, shattered, strength, exposed as frailty, gamble gone awry, cliffhanger palace, presumed ban quells crisis. Wrong. It birthed backlash, beastlier threatening throne more than Sussex salvos. First flares global opinions inferno, where international ire scorched hottest. The phrase itself sounds almost clinical, like a diplomatic memo tucked away in some dusty government archive, but in reality it was anything but dry. It was a blazing inferno of indignation, a torrent of tantrums that no fortress, facade, no archaic artifact, no centuries of stuffy etiquette could contain or conceal. When the decree dropped that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry were officially persona non grata at all future royal romps, the world didn't murmur meekly. It erupted like a volcano of virtue and vitriol spewing lava across continents. Let's dissect Britain first, with a sardonic snort. On one flank, jubilant jeers echoed yes, actual cheers, as if the tabloids had won the lottery of luridness. For months, those rag sheets had frothed with fury over the duo's treachery pundits, pounding podiums for payback polls, plunging their popularity deeper than a royal crypt. So, when Exile etched official, some crowed it as karmic comeuppance. At last, one sneering scribe snarled the monarchy bears its fangs instead of fangs of fake forgiveness. For betrayal believers, the ban was Barmessiah finally spine in the spineless. But for the youth brigade and skeptics, it smacked like a slap from a senile system. Why swift exile for these two, yet endless excuses for deeper dirtbags? The hypocrisy highlight reel played overnight double standards, dancing like jesters in denial. Yet Blighty's bipolar backlash was mere appetizer. Across the pond in Uncle Sam's domain, the uproar crashed like a tsunamic tidal wave of theatrics. Meghan reigned as darling there. Hollywood hugged her like a prodigal princess. Activists anointed her anti-establishment angel poles, and stars styled her as slayer of stale traditions and subtle savagery. Hours post-proclamation hashtags like number we stand with Meghan and number justice for Harry hijacked feeds like viral viruses. Chat shows chewed the cud endlessly. Anchors framed the fiat as fossilised folly, unkindness, unchained evolution evaded. If they butcher their blood this way, one Yankee yakker yowled what rot lurks in the relic. And here's the hilarious hypocrisy hitting hurricane force in Britain, the move masqueraded as muscle-flexing boundary bossing. Authority assertion. In America, weakness writ large, a brittle behemoth bullying truth-tellers. Atlantic divide, dual delusions, royals reigning over neither narrative like hapless has-beens. Zoom wider to the Commonwealth circus. Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the Caribbean, not distant dots with decorative deference, but brewing battlegrounds, questioning crown, clout in modernity's mirror. Meghan and Harry's ousting octane boosted those brews. Jamaican agitators jabbed the ban as alienation ammo. Aussie rags roared Republican rallies. Canadian corners, where the duo briefly bunked post-Brexit from Blighty, branded it betrayal of both couple and contemporary creed. Pressure pulsed, not just politically, but culturally, like a heartbeat of heresy. Ponder Meghan and Harry transcended titles, their celeb supernovas. Stars don't dim discreetly. Every chat show, charm, gala, glow-up, Netflix noodle or Spotify spiel smuggled the snub reframing royals as ruthless relics, outdated ogres. Palace craved quietus, got a megaphone of mockery instead. Here's tension, twisting to tantrum peak advisors had prophesied. Martyrdom exile, elevating ex-royals from faded footnotes to forever foes. Victim vibe, their new vibe, power pack. In Global Gab's court narrative, nukes all. But humanised the havoc Meghan eyeing outrage overflow, felt affirmed. Her monarchy moans of mistreatment, muzzling marginalisation, now manifesto, manifest, ban badge of bravery. Harry heartsplit, twixt hurt and heat, witnessing dad and bro banish him from bloodline books. Support soothed, severance seared. Toss this taunt, did royals underrate the worldwide whirlwind figured fiat fizzles in Fleet Street fog and palace passages? Or flaunted indifference swapping global goodwill for homegrown harmony? Irony bites monarchy milked multinational. Magnetism, African jaunts, Aussie ambles. Canadian capers, not mere snaps, but survival strings proving pertinence past pommy shores. Now those strands, strained Republican rifles reloaded. Why worship a wrecker of its own? Media mauled ravenously. Blighty broadsheets bragged ban, bravado. Yankee yarns yodeled sympathy sagas. Schism sharpened uglier than a witch's wart. No longer Windsors versus Sussexes, Britain versus America, tradition versus trend, silence versus squawk, palace, puppetry pushed counter-narratives, stiff statements, loyal leaks, briefings, branding, ban benevolent, futile flailing, global gab drowns whispers. Monarchy's mystique mojo myth busted. They're not ethereal enigmas above a phrase. They're brawlers, in the brawl feud fighters, frail as glass. World's narrative obsession, their Achilles heel, exposed. Fascinating flip royals reckon strength in secrecy. Ban Blewett participants, not paragons. Cliffhanger amid cacophony crescendo, royals reloaded. Ban as finale folly. Palace prepped proclamation, punchier Sussex shaking world wondering if crown crossed cruelty's chasm. Next, not statement, stark strife declaration. Imagine the silence before a bomb goes off, that pregnant pause, pregnant with peril, like the calm before a comedic catastrophe. That's what it felt like in the days leading up to the official announcement. Rumours ricocheting like rubber bullets, papers prognosticating with pompous precision, social media swirling theories like a conspiracy cocktail, but the palace, tight-lipped as a clam, in concrete, no drips, no disclaimers, just deafening quietude. Then bam, without fanfare or forewarning, the statement strikes frigid, fabricated finality, forged in formality. The monarchy had decreed, and the echoes would etch eternal embarrassment. This wasn't a sloppy scandal slip to the scandal sheets, nor a sly friend of the family fable fed to tabloids for plausible deniability. No, this was straight from the source official as an oath words whetted with surgical sharpness. Every period, every phrase, every veiled venom, vetted by vipers in velvet, advisors, attorneys, apex aristocrats. The core communique Crystal, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry permanently persona non grata at all forthcoming royal revelries. Not probationary, not provisional, perpetual like a curse carved in coronation stone. Grasp the gravity with the guffaw royal romps aren't backyard barbecues, they're historical histrionics. Coronations, jubilees, weddings, funerals, state suppers. These aren't ephemeral escapades, they're legacy landmarks inscribed in annals for ages. And Meghan and Harry wipe from the slate like graffiti on a gravestone. Envision the existential elbow informed that no deeds, no declarations, no desperate do-overs will ever earn you a spot beside blood in those benchmarks. Gate not ajar, nailed barricaded key, consigned to the Thames's murky maw. Let's dissect the delivery's drollery palace didn't holler or harangue. That's beneath their bogus breeding. Instead, cloaked in cloistered claptrap of duty heritage and optimistic outlook, it prattled of stability, safeguarding, dignity, defence, unity uplift, while underscoring Sussex severance with surgical subtlety. Royal rhetoric dagger dipped in diplomacy, smile-sheathed shiv. Yet beneath the buffed banalities lurked brutality bare. We're washing our hands of you eternally. And here's hypocrisy, howling highest eons, extolling family foremost, Windsors welded through woes, yet publicly pruning progeny. The outfit that outlasted Edward's exit, Charles's chaos, Andrew's abyss, now deems duo too toxic, too treacherous, too tumultuous, too topsy-turvy. Sneer and query truly tied transgressions or terrorised by turmoil. Dread of duo dominating, do's dread of doormat depiction. If readmitted dread, one smirk, one murmur, one meme could melt meticulously moulded masks. Strip the spin, fear-fuelled pure and puerile. Now optics odyssey, not tabloid tease, not sourced snippet palace. Pure, irrefutable. For duo, no deflection dodge, press no dismissal dance, public no reconciliation ruse. Line lasered in limestone, visible to voyeurs worldwide. Reaction rapid, as rabies tabloids trumpeted triumph, palace puts foot down door, deadbolted, exile endorsed. Stateside scribes seethed cruel, creaky, clueless. Celebs cascaded condolences for Meghan. Activists accused avenging authenticity. Global Gale Palace predicted unleashed in full fury. Yet, within walls, weird whimsy relief, rippled clarity, crystallised after chaotic years. No more nail-biting, no navel-gazing decree done, but cruelest comedy statement supposed to stifle spectacle only supercharged it. Meghan and Harry ammo upgraded from estranged enigmas to exiled exemplars. Saga sprouted sequel palace penned, every ensuing exposé, every episode, every oration overshadowed by ousting outsiders, not optional ordained outcasts. Harry Heartache, reading rejection son, spurned by sire brother, banished by blood prince purged from patrimony. Personal planetary put-down. Meghan dual-edged dagger, devastating denial of détente vindicating venom that Monarchy's merciless as maligned as her monologues. But bombshell buried announcement, articulated event exile, yet whispers wailed of wilder whims. Title, stripping privilege, plucking total tie severing. Public peaked pinnacle, private plots plummeted profounder. Monarchy's mockery, visible veneer, veils volumes. Truth, tip of titanic iceberg. Cliffhanger, if public proclamation, This piercing what poisons persist in privacy, what schemes, scourges, salvos sealed in secrecy. Announcement appeared, absolute actually appetizer for abyssal act. Next, nudge, not from heirs, or Anne from king's cloistered confines, where kin and crown clashed, challenging Charles chancier than any reign rigmarole. Behind closed doors with William and Kate, that's where the royal story begins brewing in the shadows, like a bitter brew of betrayal and blueprints. The official announcement was public polished to a pretentious sheen and passed with pedantic precision. But the decision itself, that germinated in the intimate interludes between the Prince and Princess of Wales, those paragons of poise masking a maelstrom of machinations. Picture the parody deep into the night at Adelaide Cottage, their Windsor retreat resembling a fortified fairy tale. Offspring, slumbering soundly, the abode hushed, save for the subtle surveillance hum outside like watchful wraiths. William and Kate hunched over a kitchen counter-tease, tepid as their tempers strewn, with strategy scraps, polls predicting peril clippings of chaos, aid annotations like battle plans. This wasn't idle pillow talk. It was tactical warfare scheming sessions sharper than Excalibur. Lob this at yourself with a leer. How burdensome must it be to bear that your utterances, your edicts, could etch the monarchy's fate for decades like graffiti on granite. For William and Kate, this transcended Meghan and Harriet. Enveloped the impending inheritance George, Charlotte and Louis's lot, questioning if the crown would crumble before their kids could claim it reduced to relics in a Republican rubbish heap. In their jaundiced judgment, the duo weren't mere distant defectors. They were radiological risks, walking wrecking balls wired to implode the institution. William had initially compartmentalised his contempt, but how? This was his sibling, his playmate in princely pandemonium. The lad who trudged beside him, trailing Diana's tragic trail, gazes grounded, grips grim. Yet each spare snippet, every Meghan, moan every insinuated insult, stabbed like a sibling switchblade. William had choked down chagrin for cycles, praying Harry's histrionics halted, but no dice he persisted, propelled by some perpetual pity party. That accumulated agony night upon nocturnal nagging calcified into concrete conviction. And Kate, however, infused intellect over ire. She'd observed the opera of outrage, with glacial grace weathering Meghan's media missiles, and the press's petty parallels pitting them as polar princesses. Unlike William's wrath, Kate calculated coldly, this isn't our ego bruise, she'd iterate, it's throne triage. And here's contradictions clashing, like symbols William raged as rebuffed relative. Kate schemed as sovereign in waiting. Synergized, unstoppable, his fury-fueled fire, her tactics tempered tactics. Their twilight talks transitioned from fix-it fantasies to finality formulas, reconciliation rhetoric to ruthless rupture. Now spotlight the Sprogs George, Charlotte, Louis, not present, but pivotal phantoms in every plot. William recalled his own hounded youth paparazzi plagues at playgrounds, murmurs of marital mayhem. Diana's demise demanding public mourning like a performative penance. Gazing at his heirs, he swore no such scourge, but how, when royals risked becoming Sussex sideshows, envisioned George's gig at Dad's crowning fanfare fouled by a fixation on Harry's haunt, Meghan's mien, brotherly bonds. William forbade it, not cruelty, but custody of calm. Kate amplified, scarred by scrutiny scars. Nasty noms de guerre pre-perfection. She drilled duty's dictum crown before kin. Hesitate, she'd hiss, and heirs inherit havoc. That mantra marred William for no nobler oath than offspring shielding. But ironies impale, prioritising progeny protection, perpetuated Archies and Lilibets, limbo nephews and niece, neutered from narrative. Salvaging some, sacrificed others, sting, acknowledged, but steamrolled, and Charles' complications compounded. Duo discerned Dad's duality, Harry's hold-out reconciliation romantic. Push too pugilistic, he'd push back, too tepid inertia. Solution summon Anne, as sway sister. If any could crack Charles, her candour could. Hence Anne's anvil, amplified groundwork groomed by William and Kate's whispers. They'd self-convinced, Anne accelerated. But true turmoil in twilit talks, unspoken undercurrents, grief gushing beneath grafts and gripes. Grief for brother's betrayal, for sister-in-law's stranger status, for fractured fraternity irreparable. Unadmitted yet ambient. Not mere monarchy mending, but mourning Harry's haunting absence. Query with quirk, right road, or scandal phobia fogging forgiveness. History might hail as saviours or sibling slayers, crown clutchers over kin keepers. Cliffhanger, despite designs, one wild card waited, King Charles. Conflicted capricious, just as duo deemed decree. Done, he dabbled in doubt. Paternal pull pummeled princely prerogative. Ensuing enclave chaos would chill even William and Kate's cause. The Charles dilemma. That's what everyone close to the palace began whispering about in hushed tones, as if even speaking it aloud might make it worse, like invoking a curse in a house of mirrors. Because the truth was, this King Charles wasn't just the head of state, a figurehead floating on formalities. He was a father, flesh and frailty intertwined. And in this moment, those dual destinies jewelled in the most excruciating exhibition of existential angst. Imagine the idiocy of the impasse you've idled your existence, awaiting ascension, decades drilled in decorum, endless eyes dissecting your every exhale, a mother whose marathon monarchy outlasted most mortals. Then, throne attained globe, gawking coronet, crushing your cranium, and BAM stability sabotaged by a schism no sceptre or splendour consoled her. That encapsulated Charles. For him, Harry transcended troublesome title. He was progeny, the tot tugged to tutorials, hand in hand the Balmoral boy, bonded in boyhood, the youth yoked in Diana's dirge procession, stares stoic knuckles knotted. Charles comprehended Harry's haunting hurts. He'd beheld even bolstered them. A sliver still simmered with silly hope that sire and scion could suture scars. So when BAM blueprints bombarded his bureau, Charles balked like a bucking bronco, William and Kate steadfast as statues, Anne adamant as anvil, Camilla crafty calculator, but Charles capricious as clouds. His contradictions, carving him like a Christmas turkey as sovereign stability, supreme Sussex salvos as seismic saboteurs, interviews, incendiary memoirs, munitions, deals, detonators dismantling dynasty. As patriarch pardon pulsed, he yearned yesteryear's yarn family fused. One voice vied duty demands the other wailed son safeguards. Then Camilla crept in survivor supreme, from scorned to sceptred, she'd braved backlash blacker than bitumen. Crowds catcalled tabs tarred her treacherous, yet she never nuked back, no exposes, no epics. She stewed stoically image, inching upward till queenly quintessence, Meghan mirror, malformed defiant, not docile. Camilla cooed to Charles' crown, contemplate legacy we've laboured. She reframed rupture not as rejection, but rampart for reign-long toils. Permission to purge paternal pangs choice as championship, not child chucking. Her hush lifeline for the lost, Anne's arrow amplified, fatherhood folds to kingship, Sting savage sacrificing son for sceptre. William's wail weighed waver wreck all, not brotherly bleat heirs howl, ignoring invites, inheritance implosion. Charles knew neglect, nicks not just nucleus, but next. Yet Harry haunted closer kin than William's dutiful drone. Harry the Hellion needed nurture, bond battered but binding. Solitary studies saw him staring Diana's depiction, deliberating her disdain. Curse for kin culling. Comprehend the conundrum Diana's disdain devoured doubts. Dilemma dragged deferred deliberations, demanded data deluges, consulted courtiers ceaselessly, echoes eternal act or anarchy. Monarchy merciless to mush. Toss this taunt, defy the din, prioritise paternity, or crowns crush, compel compliance with callous calculus. Eventually, erosion chose crown conscience crushed, consented crestfallen, signed solemnly, nodded numbly, eyes echoed elegy, sorrowful, stranded, subdued, unseen sliver, post-proclamation, private pleas for personal patch-ups. Exile as entities, but fatherly fissure, faintly feasible hidden haven, contradiction, crack clutching both crowns. Yet, world-weld man to monarch, history harvests hybrid. In annals, Charles chronicled as cliffhanger, deemed dilemma done, detonated deeper, while wrestling woes, Camilla covertly conspired. Her shove solidified severance, sealing Meghan's saga in surprises unforeseen. Camilla's calculated push. The very phrase sounds like something out of a Shakespearean play, doesn't it? A queen long vilified, now sitting in the seat of power and whispering into the king's ear at the moment of his greatest weakness, like a Machiavellian. News in modern drag. For decades, Camilla was the outsider incarnate, the scandal's scarlet woman, the infamous intruder in Diana's doomed duet. But now, with Charles enthroned, she not only endured the exile of public enmity, she'd emerged victorious, a phoenix from the flames of former fury. And in the Meghan and Harry melodrama, she spied a sinister symmetry, a peril to the palace, and, by twisted extension, to her own tenuous triumph. Let's lance the obvious with a laugh Camilla comprehended contempt, like a connoisseur she'd quaffed quarts of it. Lived the loathing legend broadsheets, branded her Britain's bogeywoman, mobs mocked in masses. Villainess in the vignette of Charles and Diana's debacle. Decades dodging disdain, whispers whittling her worthless. Yet, key contrast, no counter-offensives, no confessional carnivals, no memoir manifestos. She bided buffered by endurance incrementally inching into acceptance until improbably queenly quarters claimed. That, in her estimation, eclipsed Meghan's method. Meghan marauded, not muted. Interviews ignited tomes, torched docks, detonated suits, slung. Camilla contrasted compliance with combat, determined to demonstrate that stoicism slays, while rebellion wreaks ruin. So when Charles churned over ousting offspring, Camilla calibrated her coup not with noise or nettles, but nuanced nudges. No shrieks, no scolds, soft susurrations, almost affectionate articulating argument. Crown consider, she coaxed. What we've wrought recall. Evoked eras of legitimacy, labour, charity churns, curated cameos, ceaseless camera courtesies, one misstep scandal, surplus and avalanche. Risk ruin for rebels reckless, about realm's resilience. Query quelled qualms. Words weren't wheedling. Lifeline for languishing leader. Charles cleaved twixt kin, and kingdom craved counsel. Camilla conferred clearance to quash qualms, recasting rejection as reign's rampart, not renunciation. Darker draft whispers, wag Camilla's campaign concealed vendetta. Meghan maligned her in memoir malice. Dangerous Harry hurled press leak puppet to polish persona, not critique combat call. Camilla cognised calumny's clause, refused regression to reviled ranks. Her message, Manifest Meghan, mirrored malformed fighting where fortitude fits. In patience versus pugnacity, her path prevailed. Camilla's counsel, clear in action, invites implosion. An augmented ultimatum, underscoring William Wade. Yet Charles clung to closeness. Harry harboured heartstrings tauter than William's. Dilemma deepened, but Camilla's craft cut through. Query with quirk paternal primacy or palace precedence, Camilla catalysed crown choice. push propelled permanence, Meghan marooned in manner unforeseen.